So we know that consumers all have a desire to modify their appearance, and of course, huge industries like cosmetics and so on are built on the basic desire to modify appearance. But now we can do plastic surgery in cyberspace much easier. So, for example, this is a real woman. You can kind of see her deal. She's a young woman. She probably doesn't get much sleep. Got these little kids around. Many of us have been there. This is who she is when she goes into a virtual world. So it's obvious there's a bit of aspiration going on. It's kind of interesting to think about how a woman like this can transport herself and basically change her identity in a lot of ways. So we see a lot of applications implications for shopping, where people are going online, and many fashion designers are starting their careers in these virtual worlds because they don't need the capital to erect a bricks and mortar facility. This is a screenshot from some research we are doing with adolescents. MTV has several virtual worlds, and we send our students in, and they basically are doing ethnographic research where they're talking to these kids who are logging in for sometimes hours a day to become part of these worlds. Corporate training, as I mentioned, if you go to work for IBM today, the odds are they're not going to fly you to some location for orientation, sit in a hotel room for 2 weeks. You're going to go into their virtual world, and they've invested millions of dollars in basically migrating virtually all of their HR functions into one of these environments. Trade shows, the future. If I ran a physical trade show, I'd be kind of nervous today, because increasingly we see that people are going to virtual trade shows where they don't have to travel, and they're able to quickly filter a lot of information, interact with a lot of vendors and so on without leaving their offices. Lots of implications for different product categories because people want to dress their avatars. And you'd say, who cares about what my avatar looks like? Go in and create one, and you'll see how quickly you have the desire to make sure that your avatar looks really sharp. We can simulate virtual stores. This is a prototype that a large retailer in the UK is working on now to look at store layouts and so on without having to build the real store. Social gaming, most of you are familiar with. This is an application of virtual worlds. Farmville, for example, a tremendous way to drive traffic to websites. Read this carefully. Revenue this year from virtual goods, that is what people buy for their avatars, will hit $1.6 billion US dollars this year. $1 billion for products that don't exist. People are spending this amount of money to buy products for their avatars or characters in games. Unbelievable. I'm just going to skip over a few things here, but this is another example. Honda sponsored this platform. 2 million users they got in the 2 weeks following the introduction of this social game online. So I'm running a little short on time, so I'm just want to quickly skip over a few things and talk about what happens when we go the other direction, as people are taking their online behaviors and moving them offline. Well, one of the things that's going to happen is when we look at smart clothing and so on, this is a prototype, a networked hoodie. So when the woman wears this, it's actually wired, for example, with her cell phone. So it vibrates in different ways depending on who's calling. So she's literally wearing her telephone and wearing her computer as a garment. The phenomenon of cosplay, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but this is a huge global phenomenon, mostly youth-oriented, where kids are dressing in the real world as their avatars in their virtual world. So they are creating these identities online, and now they're bringing that identity offline and having massive conventions and so on. These are pictures of actual kids dressed as their avatars. And kind of scary, I guess, but that's, you know, these are actual photographs. This is a MasterCard that's got someone's avatar on it, so it's a Second Life MasterCard. This is My Virtual Model, which is a great piece of software that allows you to put your body up there, modify the dimensions, and then try clothing on so that you can see what that clothing will look like on your body, not on Tyra Banks' body. We're using this to look at sales training. For example, in this application, we're looking at training pharmaceutical sales reps who need to call on physicians. Very expensive process, very, very tough to get physicians to cooperate, as you know. Usually it's done with role playing, where you get an actual physician or someone to play a physician, and they have to sit down and role play these sales calls. Extremely expensive. We can model this online, and we basically take most of the cost out of there. New product development, a number of companies are using this to put prototypes out there, let consumers play with these. Again, you no longer own your brand, and modify those. So, for example, you know the Aloft brand of Starwood hotels that has opened recently around the country. They put the prototype of the Aloft architecture onto Second Life for about a year and had people make modifications to that before they rolled out the actual brand. So here we have this combination of the physical and the virtual. Again, this distinction is no longer really valid, so-called augmented reality. Here is a virtual mirror being tested in some department stores. The shopper stands in front of it. Instead of taking on and off clothes, on and off, on and off, she stands there. She can take an outfit, superimpose it on her body, see what it's going to look like. Her friends can chime in on Facebook and say, you know, that makes your hips look too big. Go to the next outfit. So this is fairly typical what many of us have on our phones now. Again, marrying the two domains of the physical and the virtual. So being able to impose extra details as we take our phone and we aim it at a store, we can find out what's on sale and that sort of thing. This is kind of a more cynical prediction of how this stuff may play out. Hopefully some of this won't happen, but of course with facial recognition software, we will soon reach the point where I can take a picture of you with my phone, and now superimposed on that picture, it's going to connect to various databases, like I'm going to know whether you're a registered sex offender, and I'll be able to superimpose advertisements on your t-shirt as you walk down the street and find out, I like his shirt, where did he buy it, take a picture of it, and now I can find out where he bought it. If you're familiar with Microsoft Kinect, a big game changer, because now the navigation is much easier in these worlds. You don't even need like a Wii where you needed the racket to play tennis or something like that. Using the Wii platform, you basically just stand there and your avatar mimics exactly your movements on the TV screen. So that's going to make it much easier for the everyday consumer to use this stuff. So when we think about what's next, just to wrap up, when we take social media platforms like Orkut or Facebook or Google Plus and so on, connect them with these virtual worlds, start to build some of the technological improvements like the Microsoft Kinect platform. What we're getting is, I don't know what we're going to call it, maybe it's Web 3.0, where it's more like a holographic experience. Again, no longer entering a world, leaving a world, you're just in that world all the time. And just to finish up, some of the opportunities that I see here, various kinds of shopper insight experiences. We're doing a big project now with a major food manufacturer where we're creating new recipes where we have everyday consumers coming into a virtual kitchen to tell us how they would use the products that this company makes. Brand-sponsored virtual worlds. Of course, everybody's talking about social gaming and badges and so on. Foursquare, who knows where that's going to go. Anybody use Foursquare and check in at places? You can become the mayor of the Taylor Institute, perhaps. People seem to think that's important, to be the person who checks in the most. Various kinds of network effects and social shopping. Again, replicating the physical shopping experience with my friends, but doing it in a virtual environment. And again, as I said, sales training and trade shows. So I guess I would conclude by saying, we no longer can talk about reality. What is reality? When on the one hand, we have these virtual characters who have very realistic features and have brand logos and stuff in there. Then we go into the so-called real world, and we have guys that dress like this who maybe need to get out a little more. But really, we have a fusion between the two. So I've probably gone over a few minutes, but basically, that's where I see the future of consumer behavior going. And so your challenge is to figure out how you're going to be there when the consumer continues to step into this digital environment. So thank you.